Last October, I buried 500 pounds of vegetables in a trench in my backyard. No electricity, no preservatives, no canning jars, no freezer bags. I walked out to that trench in late February, dug down through frozen ground, and pulled out carrots that were still crisp, turnips that were still firm, and beets that looked like they had just come out of the garden. The total cost of building that storage system was $11.30. That is the whole number. I did not invent this. Not even close. This technique is older than written records of agriculture in the Northern Hemisphere. It is not a trick. It is a physical principle that farmers understood intuitively long before anyone had a word for thermodynamics. Homesteaders across the American frontier used root cellars and trench storage as a matter of survival throughout the 1800s. Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote about her family's vegetable storage pit in Dakota Territory in the 1880s. They survived winters that would shut down a modern city. In Scandinavia, storing root vegetables underground was so embedded in rural culture that Norwegian and Swedish farms maintained designated storage trenches as standard infrastructure well into the 1900s. The Russian tradition of earthen storage pits, zemlyanki, for beets, carrots, and turnips was documented extensively by 19th-century agronomists and fed populations through winters that dropped to 30 below zero. German farmers packed root vegetables in sand-filled trenches under hay-covered mounds that stayed stable through January and February. Refrigerators got cheap, grocery stores opened everywhere, and this skill quietly disappeared. It works too well and costs too little to sell. So let me show you how to do it. You already know the principle at work here. You have seen it every time you reach into a cooler at a summer cookout. The cooler keeps things cold not because it generates cold, it generates nothing, but because it slows the transfer of heat. The ground does the same thing at a much larger scale for free. This is called geothermal buffering. Below the frost line in most temperate climates, roughly 2 to 4 feet depending on your region, the Earth maintains a nearly constant temperature year-round, between 35 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Think of the Earth as a giant, insulated thermos. The surface temperature swings wildly with the seasons, but the thermos walls are thick enough that the core barely moves. A properly built trench puts your vegetables inside that thermos. Here is the number that surprises almost everyone. In most of the continental United States and Canada, soil at just 3 feet deep maintains temperatures between 40 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit from November through March, almost exactly the range of a modern refrigerator, but without a single watt of electricity. The University of Minnesota Extension Service documented soil temperature data showing variance at 36 inches of depth was less than 8 degrees across an entire winter season. Root vegetables, carrots, beets, turnips, parsnips, potatoes, celeriac, rutabagas, evolved to survive underground. Their biology is built around lying dormant in cold, dark, moist earth. The trench is not doing anything foreign to them. It is simply extending the conditions they already know how to survive. And here is the part that gets me every time. Vegetables in a trench often arrive at the table sweeter in February than they were at harvest. Cold temperatures cause root vegetables to convert starches into sugars, cold-induced sweetening, because sugars have a lower freezing point and act as natural antifreeze. A carrot in January is converting its own chemistry to survive, and the result on your plate tastes like something a restaurant would charge extra for. Now we need to talk about what you actually need to build this, because it is almost comically simple. Here is what you need. And I want to be honest with you. This is genuinely it. You need a shovel. You almost certainly have one. You need straw. Bales from a feed store typically run $3 to $5 each, and one bale is more than enough. Call it $4. You need scrap lumber for a simple lid frame. 2 or 3 rough boards from a salvage store run about $4 if you need to buy them. You need a piece of heavy plastic sheeting. A contractor trash bag opened flat works perfectly, about $1.50. Sand if your soil is very clay-heavy, but most people find local subsoil works fine with no amendment. That is $11.30, all in. If you already have straw or lumber, You are at $4 or less. Less than a single bag of groceries. Now let us build it. Choose your site carefully. This is a decision you make once and live with all winter. You want a location that drains well. Never the lowest point in your yard where water pools after rain. A slight slope is ideal. You want partial shade during the afternoon to moderate surface temperature. You want it close enough to your house that you will actually walk out in January when it is cold. Mark out your trench. The dimensions that have proven out over generations. 2 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and as long as you need. For 500 pounds of vegetables, plan for 8 to 10 feet in length. A family of 4 storing a meaningful winter supply typically works with 6 to 8 feet. You can always build a second one later. Dig down 3 feet. This is real physical work. It takes most people 2 to 3 hours depending on soil type. Clay is harder than sandy loam. Rocky ground requires a mattock or digging bar in addition to a shovel. Split the effort over 2 days if needed. You are not building furniture. It just needs to be deep enough and wide enough. Here is where most people ruin the entire project. They dig in the wrong location. They choose a low spot that looks convenient, and the first hard rain floods the trench and rots everything in it within a week. Water management is the single most important variable in trench storage. If your site has any question about drainage, dig a test hole after a heavy rain and check whether water pools in it. A well-sited trench in good draining soil will stay dry through the wettest winter. A poorly sited trench will fail regardless of everything else you do right. Once your trench is dug, line the floor and lower walls with 3 to 4 inches of straw. Straw serves 2 functions here. First, it creates a small air buffer that moderates temperature swings near the walls. Second, it absorbs minor condensation that forms when cold air meets the warmer soil surface. Think of the straw as the lining inside a winter coat. The earth is the coat. It keeps the wind out. The straw is the lining. It is what makes the temperature inside feel right. Now pack your vegetables. Root vegetables that store well together. Carrots, parsnips, beets, turnips, rutabagas, celeriac. They want the same conditions: cold, moist, dark. Potatoes are best stored at one end of the trench, separated from the other root vegetables by a layer of straw, because they release ethylene gas as they respire and can accelerate aging in their neighbors. Lay vegetables in horizontal layers, stems and leaves removed, leaving a 1/4 inch of stem to prevent rot from entering at the crown. Between each layer, add a 1-inch layer of slightly damp sand or loose soil. This prevents vegetables from touching each other. Direct contact allows any rot to spread and maintains the humidity that keeps them firm rather than shriveled. Think of it like filing papers with dividers between them. The dividers barely take up space but keep everything organized and separate. Do not pack the trench all the way to the top. Leave 6 inches between your top layer and ground level. Fill that space with straw, then mound additional straw above ground into a dome 8 to 12 inches thick. This insulates the entrance zone, the part most vulnerable to freeze-thaw cycling, from winter air. Lay your plastic sheeting over the straw mound and weigh the edges down with boards or stones. The plastic is a rain and snow shield to keep the straw dry and insulating all winter. Build your lid frame with 2 boards across the top of the trench opening, set under the plastic sheeting. This is your access hatch. To retrieve vegetables, lift the plastic, pull back the straw, slide out the boards, reach in. Done in under 2 minutes, close back up in 45 seconds. Here's the second thing most people get wrong. They open the trench on a warm afternoon when outside temperature is 45 or 50 degrees and warm moist air condenses inside the trench. Open only on cold days below 40 degrees. Get in and out quickly. The cold air that enters on a cold day is your friend. Warm afternoon air is not. At 4 weeks, late November for most, probe the trench temperature with a thermometer through a small gap beside the lid. It should read between 34 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Above 50 means your insulation is insufficient. Add 4 more inches of straw to the surface mound. At 8 weeks, mid-December, pull your first real harvest. The carrots will be firm. The beets will be heavy and dense, their skin smooth and tight. Slice one open. The interior color will be vivid, deep orange or deep purple, not faded the way long refrigerator storage leaves things. They smell like clean earth, alive. At 4 months, February, the hardest of winter is ending and your trench is still working. Pull out a handful of parsnips and roast them. They will be sweeter than anything you bought at a store in winter, because those cold months in the trench quietly converted their starches into sugar while you were going about your life. While the price of root vegetables at the grocery store climbs through the winter months, yours are growing sweeter 30 inches underground since October. Scale this to 2 trenches of 10 feet each, and you have the capacity to store 800 pounds of winter vegetables. A family of 4 eating root vegetables twice a week through a 5-month winter needs 300 to 400 pounds. 1 trench handles that. With 2, you have enough to share, trade, or extend your season into early spring. Sit with that for a moment. This is not really about vegetables. It is about not having to wonder, in the middle of February, whether the shelves will be restocked before the weekend. It is about the quiet confidence of knowing your household has a reserve that cost $11 and an afternoon's work. That is what food resilience looks like. It is not a warehouse. It is not a complicated system with moving parts. It is a hole in the ground lined with straw, filled with October's harvest, sealed against winter with a plank and a piece of plastic. You did not need a generator or specialized equipment. You needed a shovel, some straw, and the knowledge that the ground has been offering this service for free since before anyone thought to ask it. I do not want you to start by storing 500 pounds today. Start with 1 small test trench, 3 feet long, 3 feet deep. Fill it with 30 pounds of carrots and beets. Treat it as an experiment. If something goes wrong, you're out $11 on a Saturday afternoon. But when you open that trench in January and pull out a carrot that crunches like October in your hand, and the cold earth smell rises around your arm as you reach in, you will not need me to convince you to dig the full trench next fall. If this forgotten method changed the way you look at feeding your family through winter, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing practical wisdom that the modern world has tried to bury. Dig your roots deep and keep what the harvest gave. The next treasure of forgotten knowledge will be revealed soon.